In 1954, a junior bank clerk in Davenport, Iowa, walked a woman he had met 1 hour earlier to her front door, tipped his hat, said goodnight, and did not so much as touch her hand. She married him 11 months later. At the wedding, her father told the room he had decided on the boy that first night, watching from the parlor window. He was not handsome. He had $11 in the bank and a borrowed suit. What he had was a code, pressed into him at the kitchen table by a mother and a father who knew exactly what kind of man they were building. One that made women trust him and made men respect him before he opened his mouth. Most of what that clerk knew that night died with his generation. They moved through the world differently, not with apps or pickup lines or self-help books, but with manners carved into them by parents who knew the kind of man they were raising. Those manners won wives, kept friendships, and made a poor man welcome in any parlor in town. It was not smoothness. It was a craft, taught at dinner tables and enforced without discussion, so deeply worn that the men who lived it never thought of themselves as charming. They thought they were being raised right. Then 1970 arrived, and we decided being raised right was the same as being repressed. We threw the whole code away. Not because it stopped working, because we stopped wanting to look like the kind of men who needed to try. Number 18 on this list took less than 4 seconds, cost a man nothing, and told every other man in the room exactly how he had been raised before a word was spoken. Number 12 contradicts every piece of dating advice handed to young men today, and it is the one that made women remember a man for decades. And number 3, the rule fathers enforced more fiercely than any other, is now taught to corporate executives in a weekend retreat that costs $4,000 a seat. The old way cost a father 1 sentence and a son a lifetime of practice. These 25 rules were not about being smooth. They were about being trusted by men and remembered by women. The difference between a man who walked into a room and vanished and one who walked out of it, owed a favor and missed by a woman who had spoken to him once. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 forgotten gentleman rules that made women swoon and men respect them. Number 25, rise when she enters. When a woman entered the room, your legs moved before your mind did. You stood. A salesman in Dayton drilled it into his son through the early 50s until the boy could not have stayed seated if he tried. It cost 2 seconds and a little comfort. To a woman, it said her arrival changed the room. To the men watching, it said, here was someone raised by somebody. Staying seated said the opposite in the same instant. Rising was a sentence the body spoke before the mouth could. Number 24, take the street side. On any sidewalk, the man walked nearest the traffic, and the woman walked sheltered by the buildings. A streetcar conductor in St. Louis switched sides without a word at every corner through 1952. His son thought it old-fashioned until he understood it. The gesture said whatever came off that road came through him first. A woman never had to ask. She simply noticed, block after block, that she had been thought of. Men knew the habit could not be faked in one evening. It was a year of mornings made visible. Number 23, the hat comes off indoors. The hat stayed on in the street and came off the second you crossed a threshold, a home, a church, an elevator with a woman in it. A foundry man in Gary corrected his son with one glance in 1953, and the boy's hand was at the brim before the look had finished. Off when a lady passed. Off when you were introduced. It was a small surrender, repeated daily, that told every room you knew you were a guest in the world. The hat was nothing. Taking it off was everything. Number 22, hold the door for everyone. You reached the door first and you held it. No flourish, no waiting for thanks, just held until everyone was through. A grocer in Toledo taught his son in 1951 to hold it for the old, the young, the stranger, and the woman alike. Held for everyone, it was character. Held for women only, it was performance, and people could always tell the two apart. By 1955, the gesture was so common in American towns that a man who let a door slap shut behind him was quietly marked as raised rough. The door was the cheapest kindness a man owned. A gentleman simply never let it close on the person behind him. Number 21, look at her eyes, not past them. When a woman spoke, you looked at her face and nowhere else, not over her shoulder for someone better, not at the door. A pharmacist in Lincoln taught his son in 1955 that a wandering eye was the rudest thing a man could do without a word. A woman knew within a minute whether she had a man's whole attention or his leftovers. The men around him knew it too. Attention is the one gift that cannot be bought or borrowed. He gave all of his to one person at a time.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a good name and good manners mean something. It's the lost gentleman's code, the old-fashioned manners American gentlemen once lived by. The kind that make you the man everyone respects, welcome in any room you walk into. But these ways are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't spend another year being the man people overlook. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 20, offer the coat before she shivers. The moment the evening turned cold, the coat was already off your shoulders and around hers. No announcement, no waiting to be asked. A railroad man in Altoona did it for his wife for 40 years, starting in 1948, and his son learned that comfort given before it is requested is worth 10 times comfort given after. A woman remembered the man who noticed she was cold before she did. The watching was the gift. The coat was only proof he had been paying attention all along. Number 19, seat her, then yourself. At any table, her chair came first. You drew it, you waited, you took your own seat only once she was settled. A school teacher in Columbus taught his son one rule in 1956. No man at this table sits while a woman is standing. 3 seconds of effort said her ease mattered more than his hunger. Women felt it as tenderness. Men read it as discipline. The same small act, 2 translations, both of them in the man's favor. Number 18, grip the hand, hold the eye. The handshake had a rule, and the rule was the eyes. You took a man's hand firmly, to mean it, not to crush it, and held his gaze the whole length of it. A tool and die maker in Hamtramck made his son practice every morning in 1950. Limp grip again, eyes down again. For a young man meeting a woman's father, that handshake was a letter of reference written in 4 seconds. It told the older man the boy had been raised right. Trade schools and Army drill sergeants alike taught it through the decade, certain that a man's grip and gaze revealed in one motion what an hour of talk could hide. The hand spoke first. The man only confirmed it. Number 17, use the name 3 times. When someone gave you their name, you used it 3 times in the next 2 minutes. Once to acknowledge it, once in the middle, easily, once at the goodbye, on purpose. A hotel man in Kansas City taught his son this in 1952. By the 3rd use, the name was burned in, and the other person felt seen in a way they could not explain. A woman whose name a man recalled a week later felt chosen. It was not a memory trick. It was a refusal to let anyone feel forgettable. Here is what nobody says out loud. A man before 1965 was taught that courtesy was something he spent on everyone, freely, expecting nothing back. The coat, the door, the standing, the name. Then we decided courtesy was a transaction. We told a generation of young men to save it for the ones who earned it, to play it cool, to give nothing first. What we built was not confidence. It was a standoff. Two people across a table, each waiting for the other to be warm first, each going home alone and calling it self-respect. The old way risked a little dignity on every stranger and was repaid 100-fold in trust and in love. We called that risk foolish. We kept our coats on. And we wonder now why a room full of people can feel like a room full of locked doors. Number 16. Walk her to the door. You did not say goodnight from the curb. You walked her to the door, waited until she was safely inside, and only then turned for home. A cabinet maker in Grand Rapids did this for every guest and taught his son to do it for every woman in 1949. He said the leaving was the part people remembered because it was the part you did not have to do. A woman felt safe. A father at the window felt sure. The welcome could be politeness. The walk to the door was sincerity. Number 15. Never speak ill of the absent. When a name came up that was not in the room, you said something fair or you said nothing. A foreman in Akron told his son in 1953 that the man who gossips to you will gossip about you. A woman, hearing a man tear down someone who could not answer, learned exactly how he would one day speak of her. The men around him learned the same. Discretion was not weakness. It was a quiet promise that your name was safe in his mouth, whether you stood there or not. Number 14. Tend the small need first. The empty glass refilled, the dropped glove returned, the chair moved out of the draft. A gentleman saw the small thing and handled it before anyone asked. A shopkeeper in Providence taught his son in 1954 to watch the table, not himself. A woman noticed when a man noticed. It was not servility. It was attention turned outward, the rarest thing in any room. The small needs were a test no one announced, passed by the man looking at others instead of waiting to be looked at. Number 13. Let her finish. When a woman was speaking, you did not step on her words to insert your own. You waited until she was fully done. A pipe fitter in Youngstown enforced it at his table in 1955, raising one finger when a son cut in. The man who waits hears twice what the man who jumps in hears. A woman who could finish a thought uninterrupted in a man's company felt something rare, that her words carried weight. Patience was not dullness. It was the loudest respect a quiet man could pay. Number 12. Praise the character, not the face. Here is the one that contradicts everything young men are told today. You did not compliment a woman on her looks. You praised her wit, her kindness, the way she carried a hard moment. A lawyer in Charleston told his son in 1956 that any fool could see a pretty face. Telling a woman she was beautiful said only that he had eyes. Telling her she was sharp said he had been listening. The first she had heard 100 times. The second she remembered for 30 years. Number 11. Keep your word to her father. If you told her father you would have her home by 10, she was home by 10, 5, till, if you could manage it. A machinist in Bridgeport taught his son in 1953 that a man who keeps small promises to a girl's family is handed the large ones unasked. The hour was never about the hour. It was a test of whether your word held when no one would have blamed you for bending it. A father who saw that word stopped worrying. That was the whole prize. Number 10, carry the heavy thing. The bags, the trunk, the load up the stairs. A man reached for it before anyone could ask. A dock worker in Baltimore taught his son in 1950 that strength was given to be spent on other people, and a man who stood idle while a woman or an elder strained had wasted what he was handed. A woman felt cared for. Men recognized one of their own. The lifting cost a sore back and bought a reputation that outlasted it. Strength shown off impressed no one. Strength quietly spent impressed everyone. Number 9, never complain in front of others. The cold, the wait, the bad luck, the long day. A gentleman swallowed it in company and saved it for home, if he aired it at all. A streetcar operator in Cleveland taught his son in 1952 that complaint is contagious, and the man who spreads it makes everyone's evening smaller to enlarge his own. A woman beside a man who did not whine felt steadier for it. The men around him relaxed. To carry your own weather quietly was not pretending to be happy. It was refusing to hand your burden to people who never earned it. In 1958, a journeyman tailor in Cincinnati spent the first 10 minutes of every fitting talking about anything but the suit, the man's family, his work, the wedding the suit was for. His apprentice asked why he gave away 10 minutes of billable time. The tailor said the 10 minutes was the work. The suit was just the part he charged for. 60 years later, American companies spend $14 billion a year teaching salesmen the rapport that the tailor gave away for free. We did not get more efficient. We took the human part of every meeting, the part the old gentleman treated as sacred, and decided it was the part we could cut. The tailor's customers stayed 30 years. We click a button and pray a human answers. Number 8, dress for the people you meet. You did not dress for yourself. You dressed for the respect of the people you were about to face. A barber in Memphis pressed his son's one good shirt every Sunday in 1951 and called a clean collar a letter of apology you never had to send. A woman read care in a pressed shirt. A man read self-respect. It was never about money. The barber had none. It was effort made visible, the silent message that you had thought the meeting worth the trouble. Number 7, give credit in public. When a man did something well, you said so out loud, where others could hear. A union steward in Flint taught his son in 1953 to give credit in public and correction in private, never the reverse. A woman watching a man build others up instead of himself saw the rarest kind of confidence there is. The men he praised stayed loyal for life. Flattery curries favor. Honest credit, given freely, costs the giver nothing and earns him everything. The generous man was never the poorest in the room for long. Number 6, give her your whole attention. When you were with someone, you were with them. No glancing past them for a better conversation. A grocer in Lexington taught his son in 1949 that the greatest compliment is undivided attention, and the cheapest insult is the wandering kind. A woman who had a man's full presence for 1 hour remembered it longer than any gift. The men who could do it stood out in any crowd. Presence cannot be performed. You are either there with a person or somewhere else pretending. Number 5, be early or do not come. On time was late. You arrived before you were needed, every time. A railroad man in Sacramento lived by the timetable in 1950 and raised his son to treat every appointment like a departing train. The boy was never late to a date, a dinner, or a funeral in his life. To a woman, a man who was early had counted her time worth more than his comfort. To a man, earliness was proof of a word that held. Factory towns ran on it, a shift whistle did not wait, and the men raised under it carried the same clock into churches, courtships, and front parlors. Lateness said your convenience came first. Earliness said theirs did. Number 4, admit it plainly when you are wrong. No excuse, no long story, no soft edges. You were wrong, you said so, you set it right. A carpenter in Richmond apologized to his wife in front of his son in 1956 with 4 plain words and no defense. The boy never forgot how small the words were or how much they bought. A woman trusted a man who could say sorry without a speech. Men trusted him with things a man who could not apologize would never be handed. The apology was short on purpose. Length is where excuses hide. Number 3, provide and protect first. Before your own rest, your own hunger, your own want, the people who depended on you were seen to. A mill hand in Lowell came home bone-tired in 1950 and checked the coal, the larder, and his children's shoes before he sat down once. His son said he never saw the man take the first or the best of anything. This was the rule the fathers enforced above all others, the one a man carried into every room for the rest of his life. To put others before yourself, daily, without applause. That was the whole meaning of the word. Number 2, your word before witnesses is iron. What you said you would do with others listening, you did, though it cost you, though the world changed, though no one would have blamed you for less. A tannery worker in Milwaukee promised before his crew in 1949 to cover a sick man's shift for a month, then worked 60 days straight when the man stayed down. His son watched him keep a word that grew heavier every week. A woman who saw a man deliver on a promise stopped doubting him entirely. A promise is cheapest the moment it is made and dearest the moment it is kept. Number 1, pay attention. That is all of it. No method, no clever exception. You looked at the person in front of you, you listened to what they actually said, and you let them feel, for the length of that conversation, that they were the only person in the world. A school teacher in Terre Haute told her son in 1951 that the whole secret of being loved was to notice people fully when almost no one else bothered. A woman swooned not for the handsome man, but for the one who saw her. A man respected not the loud one, but the one who listened. Every other rule on this list was only this one wearing different clothes. The held door was attention with a hand. The remembered name was attention with a memory. Leave this one in, and a man barely needs the other 24. None of these rules required a charm school, a coach, or a single dollar. They required a home where someone lived them in front of a child too young to know he was being taught. The generation that came up before 1965 understood something we have spent 50 years unlearning. A gentleman is not born, and he is not a performance. He is built from repetition, the hat lifted 10,000 times, the door held until holding it was a reflex, a woman's words heard out to the last syllable. We called these rules stiff, old-fashioned, the kind of thing that made men who could not be themselves. We replaced them with being ourselves and called it freedom, and now we cannot understand why a crowded room can feel so empty. The rules were never lost to time. They were set down on purpose by sons who thought they had outgrown them. The gentleman is still there in the doorway, waiting to teach. The only thing missing is a man willing to stand where he stood and mean it.